Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the book, The Skaar Invasion, by Terry Brooks. This is the second book in the Fall of Shannara quartet, or tetralogy, if you will. The final Shannara series thus far. This is meant to be the end of the Shannara timeline, so he's kind of blowing it up. He's ending it all. This series is ending. And so I did read and review the first book, The Black Elf Stone, and then I also read this one, which I'm reviewing today, and then I will be reading book 3, The Steel Assassin, and book 4, The Last Druid, the final books in the Shannara series. And to recap my thoughts previously, I loved Terry Brooks' early stuff. The original Shannara series is amazing. I love the Voyage of Shannara. I didn't love Heritage as much, but I'm warming to it. And I thought that the Genesis of Shannara was brilliant. And then I think he had a couple of duds in a row. He had the Legends of Shannara, which I think were quite weak, really bad, I think. And then he had the Dark Legacy, which was kind of mediocre. And then he had I thought it was good at the time that I read it, but now I'm like, it's not as good. And I need to reread that one. And then I read The Defenders of Shannara, which was it just went downhill of the series, and I was very disappointed in it. This series, however, so far seems like it's on an upswing. I thought that Black Elf Stone was a solid start. It wasn't amazing, but it was a solid start. The Skaar Invasion is great. And it's so nice to have Terry Brooks deliver and finally start providing the promise, delivering on the promises he's made, and just give us entertaining fantasy to read again. This series basically is a mysterious force, the Skaar, or Skaar, I don't know how he pronounces it. This mysterious force is invading out of nowhere, and the druids are caught off guard. And so there's that plot line going on. And there's also the plot line of there's a girl whose brother is kind of going crazy, and he has magic, and so the girl, Tarsha, she is going to try to find a former druid leader named Drisker Ark to try to have him help her. And that was kind of the events of book 1, and then a big battle happened at the end, resulting in some big things. I can't fully get into my thoughts on this book, really, without discussing slight spoilers for the end of book 1. So if you haven't read book 1, I would be cautious. I'm going to try to dance around them, but it's going to be hard. Basically, after the events of book 1, our characters are scattered. You have Drisker, who's trapped in Paranor. You have Tarsha, who's off by herself on one plot line. You have Dar Lee, who's off on another, trying to go to the elves. And then you have you actually see the villain's perspective, and you see the Skaar, how they're planning things out and how they're moving their forces and preparing the way. And it felt very much like in the Wheel of Time series, especially early on in the Wheel of Time, when you see the people from the other lands, from the islands, come and invade with the women with the neck things. And why am I blanking on their names? But if you've read Wheel of Time, you know what I'm talking about. This felt very similar to that, except not as dark. It felt a little bit lighter touch. But you see just the destruction that comes in their wake. And you know they're not to be trusted as villains. You know that they're bad. You know that the villain leader is bad news. But our main characters kind of don't know what to make of her because she's so young and she's so powerful and she's cute. And so it throws the leaders off. And so she is just a force to be reckoned with. And I just thought that this book delivered on every element solidly. It was never the most amazing book in the series. It was never had the highest of highs in the Shannara series, in my opinion. But it just consistently delivered good scene after good scene after good scene. I thought that the way things came together in different moments of the book worked out well. I liked the book's ending quite well, and I liked how this book felt perfectly paced. That is the best part of the book, is the pacing. Oftentimes in books, authors will spend a little bit too much time on one character or one plot line, and I'll start feeling, come on, let's go to the other plot lines, or I don't want to read any more of this. This one, it felt just short enough that we're with a plot line for maybe a chapter, and then we go to some other plot lines for 2 or 3 chapters, and we go back to that plot line, and they shift around, and they're just long enough that I'm like, man, I'm starting to learn so much, I'm enjoying this, and then it's like, oh man, I'll see you later, and we'll see you in the next chapter that you show up. And then I'm going to other characters who I really care about, and I just feel balanced as a pace, and that's really difficult to do when you have a multi-character arc, when you have probably, I think there's like 7 or 8 viewpoints in this book. There's like 3 or 4 main ones, but it's like 7 or 8 total viewpoints, and they're all like perfectly balanced, really well balanced, particularly Driscoll. I think that if he had written this book 10 years earlier even, I think that, or even earlier in his career, Terry might have taken the risk of making too much of the book from Driscoll's perspective. And Driscoll's plotline was interesting, but it did not need to be the main part of the book, nor was it the main part of the book. And that's why this book works so well. If you've read the 4th Heritage book, Talismans of Shannara, there's a kind of connection to that book series, and Driscoll's arc in this book kind of follows a similar plot line to Walker Bow's arc in that book and some of the previous books. And I mentioned at the beginning of this video that this is the wrap-up. This is the final series. And as a result, some of these books have homages and connections and kind of feel like some previous books. The first book, The Black Elf Stone, felt like the Wish Song of Shannara and The First King. That's the vibe I got from it. This book really feels a lot like the Heritage series, with a touch of High Druid of Shannara. I can't tell you why it's the High Druid because of spoilers, but it mostly feels like the Heritage of Shannara series is referenced here. I'm hoping we get a solid Sword of Shannara series connection in the next couple of books, and I'm also hoping for us. I mean, we got a little bit of Geralt Shannara similarities, but just having the airships isn't enough. We need a little bit more, but still really well done. And so that's what this is kind of feels like it's connecting to. And so So Driscoll arc could have been so much more of a plotline, and Terry Brooks reined himself in, and I think that was a smart move because he's a great character, great plotline, but it's meant to be a minor plotline, and it works so well here. I do like that the cover art is basically like you see a character turned, and then with each book you get a different angle from them, and you're seeing them from a little bit more of a perspective. I am quite confident, no, maybe not quite confident, I'm pretty sure that these are the same character, and I'm pretty sure this is Tarsha. Although this could be one of the Skaar, but I'm pretty sure it's Tarsha. And then this, I'm pretty sure, is the same character as this from the angle, but I'm not entirely sure. But this one, I don't know. I don't know if this is the same character because the hair seems a little bit different, and the build of the character seems perhaps a little bit different, but the armor's the same. So whatever. If it is indeed the case that it's the same character that you're slowly turning around, or rather, they're slowly turning around in the cover art, I think that's a pretty cool idea. And I like that I have mass markets because these are so much easier to read than trades or hardcovers, which they're starting to go to trades and trades now. Hardcovers they've always had, but trades, that's where it's starting to go, and I prefer mass markets. Anyway, so those are my thoughts on The Skaar Invasion, a book that is a solid book, puts it back on the path. If it keeps going on an increase, this could be one of my favorite Shannara series of all time. I would give this particular book like an 8 out of 5. 8.5 out of 5, I should, or 8.5 out of 10. 8.5 out of 10. Boy, am I tired. It's been a long day. I worked for like 11 hours today, so I apologize. But this is like, for me, an 8.5 out of 10. The first one was like a 7.5. So if we can get these two to continue that, we might have some top shelf books, which Shannara is already my top shelf series. So if you've read The Skaar Invasion, let me know your thoughts. Did you think it was well balanced? What did you think of all your spoiler thoughts? Let me know all that stuff down below in the comments. But until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.